Hey, what's up guys? This video is going to be on the Qiewa Q1 controller and how to install it. The wire connections, everything. This was something I was planning on doing, but I wasn't going to do it till a few videos down the road. But something came to light the other day and I figured this should be the next thing I do. And basically what it is a couple weeks ago I ordered a new controller just to have a spare, another spare one laying around. Of the kind that's their new controller. If you've seen my previous videos, originally they were using this controller. It's the original older controller. You can tell because the label is right across the top of the controller, and on both ends there's a metal plate, and the end with the wires another metal plate. So there's two metal plates, and the label's right across the top. Okay, that's the original older controller. Now the one that we're calling the new controller is this one here. It looks different. There's no label on the top. There's a label on this end cap, which is a metal end cap. So the label's on the end cap instead of on top, and it's a different looking label. Different manufacturer, same spec supposedly, but it's different manufacturer. And then on the end with the wires, there's a black plastic plate, and also on the bottom there's some kind of little bracket thing there. Don't know what that's all about. So this is how the new one looks. Metal plate on one end with the label, no label on top, black plastic cap on the other end with the wires, and this little bracket thing on the bottom. That's the newer controller, what we were calling a newer controller. So anyway, I got the controller that I ordered 2 weeks ago the other day, and I pull out of the box, like, yep, it's the new one, looks just like it. Black plastic cap where the wires are coming off, metal end, label on the end, no label on top, and a little bracket. So it looks the same. It looks the same as the new one. So I'm like, okay, I got the new one here. Beyond this, somebody wrote in the comments of one of my videos about having trouble hooking up their controller. So at the same time, we got in touch with email, and he sent me some pictures, and something just didn't look right on it. So I told him, hey, I've got mine's arriving in a couple days. Let me take a look at mine when I get it, and we'll see if it's the same as yours. And sure enough, it is. There's a couple differences now between the one I just got and the one my friend got a month ago at the tops. So somewhere in the last month, this has changed a little bit. It's just the wiring. It is a little disturbing, but it's not. It can be made to work. Basically, there's the way to tell these two apart from each other is on the newest one, the one I just got the other day. There's a green and black wire coming out to a 2-pin female connector, and then also tapped off of that is a 2-pin male connector. So you have both genders of connector on green and black 2-pin wire. Okay, that wire does not exist on the other new controller, the one my friend got a month ago. That wire just isn't there. Okay, having said that, we're going to find out in this video, but I don't think you're going to need that wire. So that's not important. It's just a way to tell that this is the newest of the new controllers that they're apparently using. Okay, so that's one thing. The other difference between these two, this would just be a visual one too. On the controller that we got a month ago, there's a cable like this, a big white plastic. It's a larger connector than all the other ones on there, and it's white, 2-pin female, and there's a red and a black wire coming out of it to go all the way back down into the controller. This red and black one you're not going to use, but it's there on this controller. It's not there on this newer controller that I just got the other day. So the new controller has a green and black wire with two 2-pin connectors, male and female, on it. The one we got a month ago doesn't have that. This one has the red and black wire off the controller with this type of connector on it, and this one doesn't. So that's how you can tell them apart. There's one other connector difference on there. This is your display connector. It's a 5-pin flat connector. There's no other connector like this on your scooter. Here's that same display connector on the one I just got the other day. They're okay. They're fine. Now if you follow the red wire off of that connector, this red wire here on both sides, you'll get to another connector. That's where your alarm module is going to connect up to. And we'll get to this in a minute. But then if you keep following that down, there's a third connector on the end. This is actually going to plug onto a cable that goes to your horns, your headlights, and your side lights. Now if you notice, between these two connectors here, they're not the same. The one you need is this one. It's 2 pins, 2 wires, black and red, but it's on a 3-pin connector, a bigger connector. This has the black and red wires, but it's on a 2-pin smaller connector. So what that means is where you plug this on onto the scooter, this new one's not going to fit. So that's a problem too. So what we're going to do is, what my hopes are for this video is I'm going to go over all these controllers. We're going to do them all at the same time, only I'm going to be installing the brand new one. But we'll look at the connections on each of these. So hopefully by watching this video, regardless of what controller you might have or might get, because if you had an older one or if you had this one and now you've ordered a new one for some reason, you're going to have to make some changes to install it. And so that's my hope for this video. No matter what controller you have, no matter what new controller you might get and what you're replacing, hopefully you'll be able to watch this video and be able to connect the thing up without a problem. Alright guys, first let's take a look at my scooter. I've basically gutted it. There's no controller in it currently, and I basically have my wires just kind of loose hanging out the side. Let's go over that really quick. For these wires, first of all, you're going to have one big thicker wire coming out of this wire wrap that runs up and eventually through the stem. It goes up to the handlebars and such. So there's one big thick wire, and then there's 5 smaller flexible wires where this one's more solid. This bigger solid one just runs straight across here, right out the back, and that's your brake cable. Okay, so that's your brake cable going through there. These other 5 wires, as I said, come down from the handlebars, and that's for your display, throttle, lights, horn, and USB. So that's what those are. In addition, on each side there's a small cable which goes to your side lights down here. Okay, and then coming in the back, you're going to have the motor coming from your wire back to the back, and on here you're going to have these wires. Now on your scooters, you're going to have a big square connector that these go to, white square connector that looks like it's the mating connector to this. See all those wires on it, the same colored wires. And on the motor wires, you're going to have the mating connectors for these. On mine, I've cut those off because in the past I had a problem. This wasn't wired up well, and these wires were all wrapped together, and actually those connectors that are on the ends of those wires, on mine they got oxidized inside, so they weren't making good connection. They were loose, and a bunch of arcing happened, which made excessive heat and melted some wires. It melted my square connector that's on those 5. It's called the Hall effect. Those wires on there got melted together. The connector got melted. I had to cut all that out, so I ended up just cutting off the connectors and just hardwiring them using wire nuts. I have some smaller wire nuts for these, and then some bigger ones for these. Here they are. I use these on the smaller ones, and then those on the motor wires, and that makes it easy for me to. I swap controllers around in here so often. It makes it easy. I could do this on the trail or something. If I'm on a trail and you just swap the controller, I could do it pretty easily. Okay, there's some other things in here. This is for my LED strip going back to the back fender. You're not going to have that. I've got a kill switch here for my 48 volts. You're not going to have that. So basically, all that's left is our battery, which has a red wire. On mine, on yours, it's probably going to go through a fuse holder and a fuse. On mine, I've got it wired through a 40 amp circuit breaker that I can reset from the outside. Oh, a couple more things. There's 2 other cables that are kind of like, I call this one an Octopus Cable. It's got 5 connectors on it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a bunch of different colors. We're going to go over hooking that up too. And then you're going to have one that looks like this, a little circuit board wrapped in some heat shrink. I got mine in electrical tape because I had it open. And these connectors on it. Yours is going to have 2 of these connectors like this one. I cut mine off. I've done a brake modification. I only needed one of them, so I'm only running one of them. So now we're just going to go one by one, every connection to hook up this new controller into the scooter. We'll go over the connections on these other 2 controllers as well at the same time. To start with, we're going to just hit all the connections that are common each of these controllers have the same connection. We're going to get all that out of the way, and then at the end we'll be left with a couple things we got to do depending on which controller you have. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to put this new controller into my scooter. I'm going to cut these off because like I said, I'm just going to splice mine on, and I'm going to cut this connector off because I'm just going to use wire nuts to connect mine. On your guys's, definitely make use of this plug. You'll have the mating plug on the other side, and you can just plug that on there. On these, it's up to you. You can use what you got. I would take a look at the ones you've got on your scooter to make sure there's nothing going on inside these connections. They look burnt, or any arcing or anything around here looks burnt. Because I've seen that on 2 scooters now. Mine was the first one. Like I said, it overheated. They had these wires wrapped all together tight with electrical tape. That's not a good idea. Keep these separate because they all are going to carry a lot of current, and current creates heat. So separate them. You don't want all the heat bundled up in a bunch of electrical tape. That was part of my problem, I think. Anyway, check your connectors. If they're gold and look good like this, and you don't see any signs of wear or arcing or anything like that, then yeah, it's probably okay. Make sure when you plug them together that they're really tight. They shouldn't move at all. Or I would highly recommend doing what I did just for these 3 wires. You don't have to do it for the Hall effect connector, this one here. Use your plug on that one. But I would highly recommend clipping these off and clipping off the other mating connector on the other end and just going with wire nuts, because those are your high current connections, and I don't trust these things due to what experience I had with them. My sons, I did this to, my friends and his girlfriends, all of them, we cut these connections off just because we don't trust them really. So anyway, that's up to you. So for now, I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut these connectors off, and then we'll proceed with wiring this controller in. First of all, let's just talk about the power plug. Red and black thick wire coming out to this XT60 male connector. All 3 of these, of course, have this. This is your power connection to your battery. Just real quick, while I'm thinking of it, and this will be the last thing we connect up. We're going to leave the power disconnected. This will be the last thing we plug on. When you do plug this on, it's going to arc. When you plug it onto your battery connector, your mating connector on your battery, it will arc. There'll be a spark, there'll be a popping sound, so there's nothing wrong. That's just what it does, so don't think you did something wrong. Okay, so we'll do that absolutely last. So the first thing I like to hook up is my motor wires, and I like to start with the thicker wires, your 3-phase motor wires, and then follow that up with the Hall effect wires. Now you can see I've cut my connectors off like I said I was going to do, because I use wire nuts on mine. But I'd like to first kind of pull the wires like this, just kind of separate things. Take my power connector, hold that to the side, grab my 3 motor phase wires, and then the 5 Hall effect wires, and just kind of get those all to one side like this, and I just kind of have the other cables separated like that. Again, all 3 of these will have the same blue, green, yellow for your 3-phase, and then the red, black, yellow, green, and blue for your Hall effect. Separating the wires, again, keeping my motor wires over to the left side, kind of keeping these out of the way for now, because we're going to work with these wires right now. Alright, got my 3-phase motor phase wires hooked up, yellow to yellow, blue to blue, green to green. I'm going to connect these Hall effect wires, and you guys will have a plug on yours, and you'll have a plug on the other end. Simply plug those together. Alright, I got my Hall effect wires connected over here, all 5 of them. Again, I use wire nuts. You guys will have a plug coming off these wires from your motor, and then plug on the controller. Just plug those together on yours. Okay, so got those connected. Got my 3 main power wires to the motor connected. Our motor's completely connected now. I just kind of got that stuff all pushed off to the side here. Trying to keep things neat along with our power connector. The next one we're going to look for is a gray and black wire coming off the controller, this one here. Okay, so gray and black wires, 2-pin, and it goes to a female 2-pin small and also to a male 2-pin small. They're all going to have the gray and black. This one will, the other new one will, and then the old one doesn't have 2 connectors on it. It does still have the gray and black wires coming out, but it's only going to a 2-pin male, and because that's what you're going to use in the scooter. So this is missing the 2-pin female. Doesn't matter, it's the gray and black wire, that's what's important. So you're looking for the gray and black wire coming out of your controller, and you're looking for the male connector on it. So we're going to bypass the female one, not going to use the female one, we're only going to use this male one. Okay, so that connector is going to go to your brake sense line. We need to find that, and that's going to come down from a cable through that cable wrap there. It's going to be a 2-pin female connector with red and black wires on it. I put that piece of tape on there just so I could easily identify it. So red and black, 2-pin female, small connector. We'll plug onto the male 2-pin gray and black coming out of the controller. On either the new controllers, on the old controller, you would just plug it onto this male gray and black cable coming out of it. So that's the same between these two. Okay, so I have that connected now, brake sense line into the controller. There's an input into the controller. It lets you know when you're putting on the brakes. Moving on, next one we want to get is, it's a red and gray wire coming out of the controller to a large white 2-pin female connector. Red and gray wire, that's important. There is on the, this is on all three controllers, red and gray wire, and then here's the old one, the original one. Same thing there. Now also on this original one, and also on the middle one, I'm going to say the one we got about a month ago, there is a additional connector that looks like that. It looks like the same connector, but it's got red and black wires going into it. So don't use that one. You don't want to use that one. That's not going to be used at all, actually. So just put that one aside and grab the red and gray one coming out of the controller with the large 2-pin white female connector. Okay, that's going to connect on, that's your output from the controller. So when you put on the brakes, it actually sends a voltage out this connector, which then goes to this little brake circuit. This brake light circuit usually looks just like this. It'll have some black heat shrink probably over the top of it, and it's going to have 3 connectors coming out of it. One's this red and black wired one with the 2-pin male connector. Guess what? That plugs onto our red and gray coming out of the controller. So that's the input to this little circuit card. And then this little circuit card has 2 outputs. I only have one hooked up on here because I modified my brakes. I moved my brakes to a strip on the back, and I only needed one of these outputs, so I just kind of got rid of the other one. Yours will have 2 of these pigtails on it. One each will go to your brake lights on each side of the scooter. So that's where that's going to go. And then, again, this is the input, which we're now going to connect up to that red and gray coming out of the controller. Goes into the little brake circuit. Alright, so got that connected, the red and gray, 2-pin female, large white connector from the controller. Plugs onto this 2-pin male, red and black, going to this little brake circuit here. Okay, so that's that. Now on yours, you're going to have 2 of these little pigtails coming out of it. That's the output of the circuit to your brake lights. Connects 1 to each of your brake lights. As I mentioned, I only have one brake light line, which is right here, because this is now my brake lights. I got an LED strip back there for my brake lights. So I'm going to run that LED strip, which I wired to this connector, to my brake light output from that little circuit board right here. This 2-pin black connector, black female. On yours, you're going to have 2 of these, and there's going to be, your brake lights are going to be located here and here, and they're both going to have a wire come out that has a connector that'll match to the 2 plugs on this little circuit. Okay, so I hooked up my brake light line, and so we're done with that. You would hook up 2 of these again from that little cable. This is all done now. I'm just going to kind of hang this over the edge for now just to get it out of the way. So our brakes are done. Brakes input and output are done. Okay, next we're going to move along to this multi-purpose cable here. So first of all, you'll locate a connector, 5-pin male connector, has all kinds of different color wires, blue, white, green, black, red. 5-pin male connector. There's no other connector like this in the scooter. This is one coming off the controller. All the controllers have this. Here's the one on the original older one. And then the other new one, of course, has the same thing. So they all have that. This is going to connect up to your display and throttle through a cable. One of those cables coming down from there. So we've already hooked up one of those cables to the brake sense line. Now we're going to look for the one that matches that display connector we just looked at. And here it is. female side to it with all the wires in it. So we're just going to connect this up to here now. Okay, so we've just connected that display. Now if you follow the red wire from that connector, it goes down to another connector, which is a 3-pin female with, with the red and black wires on it, and then you can see it pigtails off to a third connector. Let's just talk about this next one. The next one down, the red wire from the display, and again, this is the same on all 3 of these cables. Red wire down this from the display goes into this middle one, and then there's a third one. So they're all identical in that aspect. They all have those that pattern of connectors. Okay, so this middle one now is going to be where you plug on your alarm module, the black square alarm module. Okay, now I don't have that in my scooter. I took it out to bypass it because it draws voltage from your battery whether your scooter's turned on or not. I did a video on that. You lose half a volt a day even if the scooter's sitting there powered off. So over a week you almost lose 4 volts even if you haven't ridden or turned on the scooter. I took it out for that reason. I actually wired it back in up top there. I have a plug so I can plug it on if I want to use it. But I prefer it that way than to have it sitting there sucking my battery voltage down constantly, even if I'm not riding the scooter. So I bypass it with the switch basically. There's my switch right there. I wired it in to this connector. I did a video on this, so I'm not going to go over how I did that. It's called Hot Wire Mod, and I'm going to plug it onto here. In your case, you're going to have your black alarm module, and you'll just plug it onto there. Okay, so I got my quote-unquote alarm module plugged onto the middle one. Okay, so again, our display is plugged on. We follow that down, the red wire down to the next connector. That's where your alarm plugs on. And then that third little pigtail one is where it plugs onto this octopus cable, which goes to your headlights, your horn, and your side lights. Okay, so this octopus cable has 5 connectors on it. 2 of them, 1 each for your side lights, so that takes up 2 of them. One of them is the connection back to the controller, and then there's 2 more that go to cables that go up for your horns and your lights. So that's what this cable does. But anyway, this third connector off of this display cable is supposed to plug onto this octopus cable, to these to the connector with the red and black wires. The other connectors have other colored wires. It's the one with the red and black on it, and it's a 3-pin male connector. But it's really only got 2 pins in it that's using red and black, but it's a 3-pin connector with the middle pin missing, so it's the size of a 3-pin connector. Okay, now if we look at the older controller, we can see the display. That's where our alarm would be, and that third connector, the 3-pin female. Perfect, it'll fit right on to this one. Let's look at the new controller we got a month ago. Here's that display connection. Follow the red wire. That's where you would plug on the alarm. Follow to the third one. That's where you plug on the lights. Perfect. 3-pin female. Fits perfectly on this cable that we need to plug it onto. Okay, so that's for those 2. Now this new one that I just got the other day, and that some of the other viewers got, at least one person that sent me a comment. Okay, there's a third one out there, and it's a 2-pin female connector. It's not the right connector. That needs to plug onto there. That's not going to work. So we got a problem here. This is your headlights, your side lights, and your horn. So you want to have this connected. Okay, so we got 2 choices here. One, cut this connector off, and then wire the red wire to the red wire here. And then there's 2 black wires here, so make sure you get both of them. Wire both those black wires directly to the black wire here. And you're just going to hardwire those together. I would recommend soldering them, or wire nuts are fine too. If you get some small wire nuts, those work too. But I think a better solution is actually if you're installing a new controller, then you probably have an old controller and it probably has the right connector on it. So let's say this is a bad controller that I'm replacing. I could just go to that controller, find that connector that I need. Yes, it's the right one, 3-pin female. Since this is my old controller, which I wasn't going to use anymore, if it's broken or whatever, cut these wires here off, the red and black. Cut this one off. You can't use this one, so you're cutting it off anyway. And then connect red to red, black to black with the connector that you took off the bad controller. That's the best option, I think. That's what I'm going to do with this one. I do have a bad controller that I couldn't repair, and it was my fault that it went bad. It's a long story, but I blew it up basically. And so I do have one. I'm going to cut off that connector. So I'm going to cut this connector off. I'm going to cut the connector off my old one, my bad one, the right connector, and then we're going to splice it together. Okay, here's my bad blown controller. Here's our connector for the display. Follow the red wire over. It goes to the middle one where the alarm would go. Follow that. There's that third connector. That's the one I want, the 3-pin female connector with red and black wires. I'm just going to cut that puppy off of there. There you go. Now I have the connector I need. Come over here. Don't want this one anymore. I'm going to try to leave as much wire as I can there, so I'm cutting this off really short at the top while I'm looking through a camera. There we go. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to solder mine. You can do it however you want, wire nuts like I said. I guess, you know, you could just strip the wires, twist them together, and then tape them with some electrical tape good. That would probably be fine. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our plug, red to red, black to black. However you're going to put them together, that's what you got to do. You have to do this, either that or just twist the wires like I said earlier. If you don't connect this, you're not going to have a horn, you're not going to have headlights, and you're not going to have the side running lights. So kind of have to do it. So I'm waiting for my soldering iron to warm up here a little bit. I'm going to tin the wires first, basically just put a little bit of solder on the bare wires of both that and then the connector as well, the connector side. I'm just going to solder these wires together. I got some heat shrink tubing here. Just cut a couple small pieces I'm going to put on there, so after it's done I can just pull that back up and seal it up good. If you want to, you could just you could just twist the wires together as tight as you can and then just tape them up good, and that should suffice. It's not going to have a lot of stress on it or anything, so if you can't solder it, just go ahead and do that. It'll work. The main thing is you want just a good connection from the black here to the black on this connector, and then from the red to the red. Okay, so I got those soldered together now, and I'm going to slide this heat shrink up the wires to cover those up, and I'm just going to use a hair dryer to heat that up and have it shrink on there. Alright, that came out pretty good. So now I've got my 3-pin female connector now spliced in. Now I can plug on my light horn cable onto that connector. Okay, so there we go. Again, let's just quickly go back. Our display, follow the red wire down, goes to your alarm module, follow the red wire to the end connector, which we just spliced in the 3-pin. That's going to connect up to this Octopus cable. It's going to go to your lights, horn, side lights. So again, that's only on this new controller where you have to do this modification with the connector for this part of the cable. The other two have the 3-pin connector. The original one and the new one they were selling about a month ago has the 3-pin connector as it should. It's just the new one. Again, I ordered this one 2 weeks ago, and this is what I got. I got to change the connector on it. So you'll just basically have to look and see what you got, and then determine if you need to do it or not. Basically, if this third cable coming off of your display cable, that third one is not a 3-pin female, if it's a 2-pin smaller one, it's not gonna work. You're gonna have to change it or hardwire it. Okay, so as long as we're this far, let's go over the connection for this Octopus cable. So there's our connector we just spliced in there, going to the red and black wires out of that cable. Now you'll notice there's 4 connectors left. 2 of them have a yellow wire running between them. One's a 3-pin male, the other's a 3-pin female. The other 2 both have green and black wires, and they're both 2-pin male connectors. Okay, so these 2, one on each side, goes to your side lights. So you find your side light cable. It's down along the side here. In this case, it's right here on mine. So this is the side light cable for this side. And here's my side light cable for the other side. If you follow this back down, it'll end up going right to the back of that light strip. So you have one on each side. Those plug onto the green with black on either side. And these are identical, so it doesn't matter which one you plug on which side. It doesn't matter. They're both the same. Okay, so now I got my 2 side lights hooked up. One there, this side here, to the green and black connectors there. Okay. Normally when I'm doing these connections, I kind of try to lay the wires in neatly as I go. I'm kind of not doing that this time so much because for clarity of this video. Okay, so now on this connector we got these 2 with the yellow wire between them. Again, one's a 3-pin female, the other's a 3-pin male. There's 2 cables coming down. 2 of these cables here are going to have the mating connectors. Here's a 3-pin male. Okay, so let's do that one first. A 3-pin male. Nope, not going to work there. 3-pin female. So this one's male, that one's female. It's the only place it can plug onto. Okay, so got that one on there. 1 connector left on here, and it's the 3-pin male. If we look, there's 2 cables remaining here. One of them is a 3-pin female, so that's going to plug onto this one. Okay, so got that one on there. Now this cable is completely hooked up. By the way, one of these goes to the headlights and one goes to the horn. I guess I never really had to dig into that, so I'm not quite sure which one's which. But those are your headlight and horn power. And there's some switching going on for the lights up in there too. So that's why this has this kind of funny looking cable here. But that's it. So our input from the controller, that third one that we had to wire in there, that other connector, is the input on the red and black. The green and black on either side is for your side lights, and then the other 2 3-pin connectors, one's male, one's female, go to 2 cables that come down from up there. Again, male and female. You can't get them wrong because you can only plug them onto the 1 connector. So that's all taken care of now. Okay, we're almost done. There is one more roadblock in front of us, so however. Okay, let's go back down here and look at what we've got left. We've got everything connected up here that we're going to use so far. There's 2 main things left on this newest controller, the green and black wire that we spoke about earlier. Not going to use it, so that's good. We're just going to put that one off to the side. Not going to use it. That leaves us 1 wire left, red and black out of the controller, 2-pin female, and 1 cable coming from the top, red and black, 2-pin male. Okay, so that should plug onto there. What this is, this cable goes up to your USB charging port. So it's taking your battery voltage and converting it to 5 volts for a USB charger. So this is basically going to be your battery voltage on here. Positive, negative, red is positive, black is negative. 2-pin male plugs onto a 2-pin female. Okay, now if we look at this, there's the locking mechanism here, there's the mating locking mechanism on the other side. So this, also you can see the holes are kind of at the top side of it. The pins are at the top side of it. So this plugs on like this. But look at the wires. Coming out of a controller, the red one, which is positive, and I measured this with a voltmeter just to be sure that they didn't just cross the colors. Red coming out of the controller is definitely the positive side. It goes into the connector, and if you made up with this connector, the red wire is then going to black. Black is going to be negative going up to your charging port, your USB charger. And then the black goes to red. Okay, anytime in the scooter, if you plug red and black connectors together and you see a red going to a black, stop. Something's not right there. So I confirmed this with the voltmeter, what's going on here. On this newest controller that I just got yesterday, and also on the newer controller we got a month ago, these wires are reversed on the controller. Now if we take a look at the original controller, here's my red and black wire coming out of it. This is the same connector on my original controller. Now if you look, you can see there's the pins on the bottom side. So I'm going to position this one with the pins on the bottom side, so the holes are near the top. Look at this one. Black on the left, red on the right. This one. Red on the right, black on the left. So it's backwards from the original controller. Black on the left, red on the right. Red on the left, black on the right. It's reversed. If you want your USB charger to port to work, when you plug onto here with your cable from your USB charger, just make sure that red goes to red and black goes to black. If it doesn't, like it doesn't here, if you want your USB port to work, you need to switch the wires on the controller. Okay, now I did that on this one here. Here's my cable coming out, and you can see the red goes into where I spliced the red wire over to the black side. I spliced the black wire over to the red side. So see that? Red going in, black coming out. Black going in, red coming out. So basically what I did is I made it so up here, red is now negative, black is positive. So I basically just swapped the polarity, which you need to do if you want your USB port to work. I did do a test with this because I don't use the USB port, I have a meter on mine. But I took my old USB port and I did the reverse polarity on it just to see if it would still work, because I thought, well, maybe that doesn't matter. It does matter. It will not work if the polarity is reversed. However, it doesn't damage it either. I had a power supply sitting on it for about 5 minutes with reverse polarity, turned it off, reversed the wires, and it came up and worked fine. So you're not going to damage it, but if your USB port don't work, it's because these two wires are reversed. Okay, so in my case, I want to fix that. If you don't care about the USB port, then you don't even need to connect this. So what I'm going to do, got to do just what we did before. We're going to cut this here, and we're going to still use the same connector. I'm going to cut these wires, and then I'm going to turn it around so red is going to the black here, and black is going to the red here. Okay, so this time we basically just cut the connector off, flipped it over, put red to black, black to red. I've now going to pull my heat shrink up and cover this up. Okay, so now I got the heat shrink in there. So in essence, I've got it plugged onto our cable that goes up to the USB port. Okay, I separated the wires a little bit so you can get a better look. So we got the red, which is positive, coming out of the controller on this side. Goes to the controller, or goes to the connector, comes out to the red wire on this side. Black coming out of the controller, switches over to black on this side. So now I've got the polarity the way it needs to be. Disregard our colors here now. Just consider this being red wire all the way up to here, and coming out red. Black wire all the way up to here, coming out black. So now our polarity is correct. Your USB port will work. Basically just had to splice in the connector, cut it, turn it around, swap the wires, splice it back in. Again, you could just twist it up, twist the wires, put some tape around it really good. That should do if you don't want to solder it. Okay, so that's that, and that actually is it. We've connected all the wires. Again, you don't use this green and black one on this controller. On these other two controllers, you don't use this red and black that's going to this big 2-pin white female connector. You don't use that. There's a few other things on here you don't use. Again, as I mentioned, you don't use the female of the black and gray cable, and on the display cable, right off the display connector, this one here, there's a 2-pin blue and white connector. You don't use that either. Everything we've connected is all you need. You should have everything connected up at this point, except for a power. Okay, so now normally I would have my wires a lot neater than this and kind of tucked in the sides and such, or I would do that after I put the controller back down inside. What I like to do though, before I go and put the controller and straighten up the wires and everything, I want to make sure it works, that I don't have to go tearing it apart again to look for something. So I believe at this point that everything should be working. I've got everything connected that needs to be connected. We had to do a couple modifications, unfortunately, but you know, we can make it work. So last thing now is I'm going to connect my power from my battery to the power to the controller. Again, when you connect these, there's going to be a spark. There's going to be maybe a popping sound, a pretty good spark too. Don't be worried, just plug it on tight. It might scare you the first time if you've never done it before, but that's just the nature of it. Alright, got the battery plugged on, it sparked like it does, and let's see if we did everything right. Okay, first thing, after having your battery disconnected, and when you plug it back on, you'll probably hear your alarm chirp or something like that. Your alarm is going to be as if it's in the locked state, so you won't be able to power up the scooter until you take your remote control for your alarm, and there's a lightning bolt button on it. You need to hit the lightning bolt button twice, and you should hear a beep. If that doesn't happen, hit your unlock button first, and then hit the lightning button twice, and it should beep. If it beeps, that's a good sign. If it doesn't beep, then maybe it's really not in that alarm state, but I believe it will be when you apply power. It'll be in the alarm state. So if you just plug the power on and you try to turn on the scooter, it doesn't turn on, don't get worried. Take your remote control and hit that lightning bolt button twice. You should hear it beep, and then power should be onto the scooter. The first thing I like to check is just see if the horn works. It does. That's a good sign. If the horn works, the lights should work. Just turn on the lights. And yep, my side lights are on. Front headlights are on. So the lights are working, horn's working, this is all good. Let's check my voltage meter, which would be my USB port if I had one. But instead I've got a voltmeter. I turn it on and it's reading positive 58 volts, so I know my polarity's good. This voltmeter wouldn't work, by the way, when the polarity was reversed. So I got 58 volts because I got that new battery. It's a 52 volt battery, so the high end is 58.8 volts. Your normal stock battery max should be like 54.6 or 7. Okay, so my voltage meter works. Everything's good so far. Let's go ahead and turn on my display. Hopefully it comes on. Yes, it does. That's good. Let's try my brake lights. You better look at those. So yeah, I really like those. Brake lights come on, that's good. Everything works so far. Last thing we need to do is give it some throttle and see if the rear tire spins. We're in first gear, that's all I need. I just need to make sure the tire goes, and here we go. Okay, so it sounds like my brake pad's rubbing a little bit. You can actually make a fine tune to your brake pad. There's a little screwing mechanism right up here on your handlebar. If you turn this counterclockwise and back the screw out like I've done here, that makes your brakes a little tighter. Brings your brake pads closer together. Likewise, if you turn it back in towards this way, so it threads in, it'll make your brake pads come apart a little bit. You also have that same mechanism on both the front brakes and back brakes, right on the brake caliper itself. So you can adjust that in and out to make fine adjustments. So in this case, I hear my brake pad rubbing a little bit. I'm going to take this and I'm going to thread it back in a little bit to give it a little more adjustment, a little bit more room in there. Let's try that. Still rubbing a little bit more. If I had somebody to hold the throttle here, I could just get it right on the edge. Still hear it a little bit. Okay, so that cleared that up. So now the brake pad's not rubbing anymore. So that's a good little adjustment you can do if you feel you need more braking power and you don't want to get the tools out, or you're on a ride or something. Just unscrew this so this comes out further. Let's go tighten up your brakes and give you better brakes. Likewise, you can open it up like I had it rubbing there. I threaded it back in a little bit and got the pads to open up enough to stop the rubbing. So that's another quick adjustment there. Okay, so everything works here, folks. This is successful. We had to do some work. We had to splice 2 connectors. That's not good. They can at least tell you that. I don't know if they even know. You know, it's a new controller they went to. They're maybe just not thinking about people buying a spare controller, because, you know, if they're wiring these things into new scooters, then they obviously got to know what's going on. But maybe, you know, the manufacturing plant's different than the sales and support plant, and, you know, somewhere there's a message missing. You know, they could do themselves a favor and do some of these little things a little bit better, and you know, get a better name for themselves. If anybody is having trouble hooking up a controller, I'll link my Gmail account down in the comments. Anybody has trouble, drop me an email. We'll figure it out. Now, next thing, I'm going to have to do a ride. It's hotter than the heck out right now, so I'm going to wait till the sun goes down. And I'm going to take this new controller out for a ride just to make sure it behaves the same as the other new controller. I think it will. The MOSFETs are the same. The circuitry inside looks all the same. Probably going to be the same. It just has some difference on the cables, unfortunately. So I think I'll do some riding, and we'll finish up after that. Okay guys, time to wrap this one up. I just got back from a quick ride. I went a few miles with this new controller in there, and I have to say, it to me is the same, runs the same as this other new controller, quote unquote new controller. I couldn't really tell any difference between them two. So basically, in summary for this video, again, 3 different controllers. The original older one that we got about a month ago, and then the one I just got the other day that's about a month, was delivered about a month after this one. And it looks the same as this one. Label on the end, black plastic cap. So from that aspect they look the same, but there's one difference, and that's in a couple of wires that are different, as we've seen. The easiest way to tell these apart, just to make it as simple as possible, is look for a green and black wire combination coming off to 2 2-pin connectors, one male, one female, green and black. There's no other cable like this on this other version of this controller. So if you see this cable here, the green and black one, you've got this one that I just installed in the scooter. And so what you're going to have to do is modify 2 cables. The one going to this light Octopus cable that I was talking about, we had to modify that because it had the wrong connector. So we cut the old connector off the old controller that was the right one, spliced it on here, then we could connect that. And the other thing is check your 48 volt wire. It's the red and black coming out of here, 2-pin male and female. So coming out of controller, as we saw in ours, if you plug those 2 together and the red doesn't line up with the red like here it doesn't, and the black doesn't line up with the black, which I don't think it's going to if you've got this controller, you have to swap the wires like I did if you want your USB port charger to work. If you don't care about that charger working, then you don't even need to connect this up at all. And if it's connected backwards, it's not going to matter. It's not going to hurt the charger. It's just not going to work with the polarity reverse. So as I did in this one, I simply cut the connector off, and then I switched the wires. Those are the 2 modifications for this controller. On this controller that doesn't have the green wire, but looks the same as this one and performs the same, you will have a cable like this with black and red wires coming out of it, and this isn't used, and that green cable there isn't used, as you saw in the video. These are just ways to identify these 2 different controllers. So this one has this cable, this one doesn't. That one has that cable, this one doesn't. So that's how you can tell these 2 apart. On this one, the only problem that you have to fix is the 48 volt or the battery voltage being reversed. So again, on this one I've got the red, and I switch over to the black going in there, and the black switching over to the red. So I reverse the polarity to match up with the cable on the scooter. So I did have to do that. But this other connector off of the display, your alarm, and then this third one that goes to your light boards, it's already got the right connector on. So with this one, you don't have to do that extra step of splicing in your old connector onto this one here. So that's pretty much it. There's two different things. That's the reason you need to tell them apart. But again, as you went to wire this up, if you're following along the video and you got to this point of plugging this cable onto the cable in the scooter, if it had that other connector, it wouldn't fit, and you would immediately know you'd have to swap it. Okay, so I think that's about it, guys. The connections on the original one are straightforward. There's nothing you need to do. You don't need to swap any wires or cut any connectors. You just hook it up like I did in the video, and that one will work. So there you have it. I think I've covered everything. If anybody at all has any questions about this on any one of these controllers, I'm going to put my email down in the comments. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to drop me an email. It's kind of a thumbs down on Qiewa's part for not providing information to people. If somebody orders a controller, there should be a diagram. There should be something. They should have the right connectors on there. I mean, that's the bottom line. But so I don't know why that is. Maybe Qiewa will see this video and make some changes. Hopefully they will. And at least make sure it's got the right connectors and the right polarity on that other one. And then it would just be plug and play. You could plug it right in and go. Anyway, I hope this video helps you guys out there. Again, like I said, if anybody has any questions or problems doing this, drop me an email and we can figure it out. All right, guys. Peace.